Tamirira hondo. Roman, Nizuru, I was traveling. I couldn't even do a live. I travel and Nizuru, but the guy daidza ivari kumusha kuti mutambo watanga nai mutambo watanga anzive zanu maitanga iyo hondo iyo hondo isingaperi manera akanaka. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me talk about those guys complaining on YouTube. It's very unfortunate, ladies and gentlemen, that I can come here and start rambling or start talking or go straight into my topic of the day. These videos are not made on YouTube, no. They are not done by YouTube, no. They are made on live on Facebook. 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬, how are you? These are live on Facebook videos. At the moment, I've got 8 people watching me. If I go straight into my presentation, by the time I get 50 people, they all want me to repeat what I've stated because they come late. So it's very unfortunate. I cannot engage an audience that loses me. That's one thing people on YouTube must understand. These videos are posted on YouTube by someone, not me. So what I will do is I'll just make a presentation of whatever I have for the day, and that individual will take these videos or download them and post them on YouTube. I have no control of that YouTube account. It's not my account. So people are complaining that you always sing. Why can't you go straight on your point? It's of no use to go straight on my point whilst I've got 8 people watching me. After that, I'll have 50, 100 people watching. And when they join me 30 minutes later, they don't know what I'm talking about. I have to repeat myself. This is why you see most of the time I'll be repeating myself for the audience to catch up with me. Those with answers, those with questions, they need to ask. They ask on this platform. They ask their questions whilst I'm making presentations. Most of the time you hear me greeting people. How are you, Mkoma Blessing? Taruona. It's to engage Mkoma Blessing. How are you, Ashistole? It's to engage the audience. So I'll be engaging the audience so that I'm appreciating them being here. So when you are listening on YouTube, it's a post-recorded video which I cannot greet you on YouTube because it won't be a live. So I'm saying, Vongai, how are you? How are you, sweetheart? Mkoma Philip, Cleanser, how are you? You understand? I am greeting audience who are just joining me, and I cannot ignore you when you come to listen. This is why you see I spend almost 2-3 hours. I'll be repeating most of the stuff so that you guys catch up with me. Emmanuel Nashimbo, how are you? Fine, and you? Blessing Taron. I'm good, my brother. How are you? So today I'm talking about, I've got a question to you, Zimbabweans, today. That can we, or is it worth to take Zimbabwe dictator head on? This is the question. Mkoma man, how are you? General Kayemba, I appreciate your presence, young man. One of ZANU-PF is a think tank. Thank you for coming, General. So the question here, I've got the question here. I can start by you guys answering. Do you think Zimbabwe dictator warrant or dictatorship warrant to be taken head on? Or can we take Zimbabwe dictator head on? Or is it a good idea to take Zimbabwe dictator head on? This is the question that I have tonight. So I'm expecting your answers in the platform. If you just joined now, the question is it worth to take Zimbabwe dictator head on? I'm going to make a presentation, and this presentation will be, sometimes you will get emotional. You might feel emotional. If you need something, read, or if you want to type something, a question or something, you can do that so people can answer to those. If I can give you the answer, I'll straight away give you the answer. If I can't, then I'll be back tomorrow again with a different presentation, but I will start addressing your questions. Mkoma Humphrey Matombo, how are you? So I'm going to look into things that I feel Zimbabweans are going through, and the things that I feel Zimbabweans needs to know, and why Zimbabweans would want to take this dictatorship in our country head on. Mkoma Claudius Majoni, Zviru kufamba. A good example, for a start, ladies and gentlemen, I was looking into Mnangagwa's days, and to be honest with you, it looks like his days are numbered. The Zimbabwe president's days are numbered. I don't want to lie. I'm saying what I've been looking through, what I've been seeing, the shenanigans that have been happening in our country. I can tell you, I can safely say, E.D. Mnangagwa's numbers as president of Zimbabwe, his days are numbered. E.D. Mnangagwa's days are numbered as president of Zimbabwe. There are quite a lot of reasons that I can safely state here. What I've been observing, you know, Mr. Mchangwa, as you are aware, Mr. Mchangwa was fired, and George Charamba's girlfriend has been appointed. 𝐃𝐲𝐸𝐿 Franz, oh, Mkoma Frango, 𝐃𝐲𝐸𝐿, the black one. And yes, we can take them head on. That's the only time when they will take us seriously. It's an answer from Mkoma 𝐃𝐲𝐸𝐿 Francis, the black man. And let's take them head on. This is the time. This is the only language they understand, and the only time they can appreciate that Zimbabweans are serious. There were developments this week, which you saw, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Mchangwa, the Shavang spokesperson, the guy who came to you and say, we are protecting BT and we are protecting Welshman 𝐃𝐲𝐸𝐿 against Nelson Chamisa. He is the one who went on to say Chamisa must be arrested because of misappropriation of CCC funds. He said quite a lot of nonsense previously before he was booted out of the information ministry, and it has been handed over to George Charamba's girlfriend. You know, these politics of appointment and appointment, they don't save you. Remember when Mugabe was booted out, the same Chris Mchangwa came with a video shooting down the legacy of Mugabe. He was telling us that if you cannot dribble past, or if you've got no solutions to how sanctions must be removed, then you should hand over the baton to a capable leader. Dirihora vagomana, dirihora rembanje, vano garam diriho, dirihora hiro, vano garam diriho, dirihora rembanje, no garam diriho, vakomana, vano garam diriho, dirihora rembanje. Mudiriho usatambe navo vano garam diriho diriho rarembanje vano garam diriho diriho ravagomana diriho rarembanje vano garam iro diriho rairo vano garam diriho diriho rarembanje no garam diriho vakomana vano garam diriho diriho rarembanje vano garam diriho diriho ravagomana. Azvinozwa kutapira kana tapinda pabasa nai panyaya yacho tenge taakupinda taakudzifambira nyaya dzacho. Regai nditange nokukorokotedza bhururu wangu Ngadziore I win his seat back. He's won his seat back as a councillor. Inini chene ndindobvumirwa kumudaidza kuti madhuku. Imi mukazomuti madhuku ka ngadzore choshatirwa manje munopopotedzana. Saka let me say congratulations to madhuku. Chimwe changu chachiya kumana chibhururu changu musadaro so. Inini ndikamuti madhuku zvinoita. Imi mukazomuti madhuku maburana. Because ngadzore mukoma shepherd ndikati musoro wako unenge wamadhuku. It's a very unique head in our country, no? Ndosaka uchiona vanhu vasingapiwe musoro yakaita seiyai. Bozi vanhu vacho zvine musoro yaya zvinodziya musoro. Saka regai nditi makorokoto kuna madhuku. Mukoma Ignatius Mapfuti zviri kufamba here. Ndakasimba mwana wamai. Regai nditi makorokoto kuna madhuku. Ngadziore kuti makorokoto muningina zvaita naye. You are a fighter, you are a soldier. Keep fighting. Now you are independent. Mukanso hapana nokuti hey yo wow. Ndaishotaurira wakomana ndikati madhuku anofana kuita chi. Afana ta mayor. Tofana kuita mayor. Because you are an independent chi. Hausi ku triple C, hausi ku ZANU, hausi kupi, you are independent. Mukanso, so you must be elected as mayor. Dirihora vakomana. Dirihora rembaje. Dirihora. Welcome madhuku. The independent councillor Mukanso Harare. I think he must be elected as mayor now. He was independent. Hakuna kwa anowira, hakuna dira anowira. Saka wakomana Harare councillors, we've got a very good candidate for mayorship. And ndakataura kuti Prince Duveko mtonga oya okupinga wavwe kuli anofanira kuita vice president when new outfit coming. So I'm saying guys, doing mafume doing akapanduka, he sold the struggle. So he's now the darling of PDP, the darling of Mnangagwa. Saka we must campaign for madhuku now to become mayor of Harare. Definitely madhuku must become mayor of Harare. Madhuku ngadzore. Mimi mukazomuti madhuku anogumbuka, anoshatirwa, ane hasha ngadzore. Saka inini chete ndingomuti yo madhuku. And musazodaro wamwe. So ladies and gentlemen, tonight I was saying ED Mnangagwa's numbers, days are numbered as president of Zimbabwe. There are telltales, or there are signs and signals that you can tell that, look, Mnangagwa's days are numbered. A very good example is the firing of 𝐾𝐤𝐿 Mchangwa. Mnangagwa has appointed George Charamba's girlfriend. I'm not going to name her, but George Charamba's girlfriend has been appointed minister. Ipapo ndambo isa picture yake vamwe vanhu vana kufara zvikanzi akatsvukira ndikati aiwa kusi kutsvukira uku ikamera dai munomuona live ikamera kanzi anogeza anoscrubba ndikati ageze uyu ikamera plus vanenge vari kupedzwa naCharamba one by one. George Charamba girlfriend yake abva aipa ministry pane zviri kuitika. That is a first sign or an indication she public already. Alright, I public already. Girlfriend ya George Charamba, Sheila Chikomo. So she has been appointed minister to replace the Watermouth Shabangu spokesperson, or Triple C spokesperson, 𝐾𝐤𝐿 Mchangwa, who is famous for telling Zimbabweans that, look, if you are a president, if we don't see skyscrapers in the capital seat, there is no development in that country. And that president must step down. That president must step down. He went on to say, if you are a president under sanctions, if you have got no method of, or if you have got no ways or ideas how sanctions can be removed, then you are not worthy to be a president. Hand over the baton to a capable leader. So he has stood his ground again in ZANU-PF, accusing Mnangagwa of failing to get the sanctions removed. Mnangagwa is in his 7 years as president of Zimbabwe now, but nothing has materialized in terms of sanctions removal. He came in to say he wants to re-engage the West, and that re-engagement has been thrown by the bucket. You throw water by the bucket. So the re-engagement has been thrown by the bucket. No more re-engagement of the West. So all the policies that Mnangagwa thought would foster, they've all failed. Sheila Kubulawa Church, foot, Scala Kubulawa Church. I don't know whether he's in Bulawa Church, but it's very unfortunate now that if you look at the results of Shavangu's candidates in Bulawayo, they all lost. Shavangu's candidates all lost. Shavangu's candidates all lost. Shavangu's candidate got 1 vote. He voted for himself. That is it. Triple C candidate got 1 vote. Kwawina Maduku. Saka, these are also signs that Mnangagwa is going down the donga. It's going down the donga. So the other signal that I've seen, remember before Mugabe was removed, Constantino Chiwenga went to China, where he said he wasn't feeling well. He went for medical attention in China. And Constantino Chiwenga is also gone to China for medical attention. At the haste of Mnangagwa appointing his children, Vazukuru, Vaningina, Vaningina, Hamachet, Hamadzake, those are Zara as ministers. Mdara Chiwenga, Mdara wangu Mkanya, Aparanga na Chakapa, Gudorungo Donza Muswechete, but without any tangible things that he helped remove Mugabe. So Mdara wangu is not happy wakumana. Vedzinza vasikufara. Mkanya is not happy. Varukungodonza muswe but zvavaremera. Mutsvangwa was also mastermind. Exactly. So Mutsvangwa has been removed in a similar way he was removed by Mugabe. And Mdara Mukanya has left Zimbabwe vachienda kuChina hanzi havasikunzwa zvakanaka health wise, and munoziva kuti kana Mukanya vaenda kuChina vakazombodzoka nemwe ndege vachibva kuChina yanga isingazika kunzi kuchaya ndege yakada vangomhara paairport. Mnangagwa akarohwa neana kuti kumudhara anongomhara chete zviri kubva ku. Now he has left the country for China for medical attention in a similar style. He left the country during Mugabe for medical attention in China, and when he came back there were members of support unit who were ready to pound on him when he landed at Harare International Airport. But unfortunately, fortunately, there were soldiers from the Presidential Guard who were in civilian in the uniform inside. When they saw the support unit guys advancing to arrest Chiwenga from an order from Robert Mugabe, then those guys, they removed their civilian attire and were left in Presidential Guard's uniform. They had weapons in there, and then they took off their weapons, cock and got ready. Then they advanced toward the Chiwenga, protecting him. And the support unit guys who did not have chance to seize Chiwenga for locking him up. Someone said, so Mchangwa Airport very isolated. Yeah, he might be on his way out again. It's so sad that this is happening at the time when Mnangagwa's presidency is under serious challenge. And Chiwenga did the same before Mugabe was removed. And he flew to China, came back under the order of arrest, and the army thwarted his arrest. Muchangwa was fired during that time. And look at Matema Ndada has been removed from Zimbabwe, is now in Mozambique as ambassador. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight. We also, Mnangagwa is very unfortunate. He's operating an economy that's perpetuating his collapse, his removal. The type of economy in our country is perpetuating Mnangagwa's removal. His backers now, those who used to back him, are now nervous. Look at what is happening. A situation which can result in a military coup. Exactly a situation that resulted in a military coup when Mudara Mugabe was removed. As Mkoma Shepard Muri say, Tirimo Muchirongwa, thanks B, thanks so much. Tritese Mwanama, so Turamba Tirimo Muchitima, Chitima Chirukufamba. You can't stop Chitima Chinonzi Nelson Chamisa. It's unfortunate that ZANU-PF has put all the barriers on his tracks, but he cannot be stopped. Chitima chacho achimiri and achimiswi and achizomisika ndo paipa. So what you are seeing happening now are telltales of Mnangagwa's demise. Mnangagwa's days are numbered. And if you look at him, health-wise, he's not healthy as well. If you look at him, he's not feeling well. Apart Namibia, yafirwa futi na president. Dazonzo vanhu vakutaura kuti but mwara vaonere. Guys, tsadaro atifana kushwira na rufu. Nachiwerenga kutwitter vanhu vachinyora vachiti zvavo maNamibians, they were congratulating Namibians for losing their president. Vanga vachiti zvavo maNamibians. Hanzi kokwedu zvichaitika rini. Ngatisashwire rufu, but ngatishwirei kuti aone Zimbabwe yakanaka ichange ichitungamirirwa naPresident Nelson Chamisa. So ndo zvatofana kuita guys. Zvokushwira na rufu izvi daita mbomira. What you are seeing now, the removal of Robert Mugabe, it caused a greater instability and suffering in our country. If you go to Zimbabwe, you can tell thousands of people are dying every day from cholera, from different diseases. Our hospital or Ministry of Health has collapsed. The hospitals have collapsed. No medication, nothing. No food, no electricity. Ukaenda kuZimbabwe, unochema kuti naimari. Is this the country atakati tukuda self-governance? Tichitora kubva kuma-British. So thousands of people of Zimbabweans are dying on daily basis. There is a massive migration in that country. Massive migration. People are sleeping in passport office. Every Zimbabwean wants to grab a passport and wants to leave that country. Hopewatching Ngono has been urging Zimbabweans, youngsters, to say, look, pack and go, pack and leave. This country will never be the same again. Don't ever think that in Ichanaka. So if you see, when I hope is encouraging Zimbabweans to leave. Instead of encouraging Zimbabweans to fight and free themselves, then put a government of their choice. He's encouraging them to leave. But it's fly back to Zimbabwe. And I know, guys, I'm not obliged to comment about Ngono and so forth, because he's a journalist. He knows what you want to hear. So a journalist will always bring what you want to hear. Unlike Shepard Judah, it's no matter panongonya, and no matter without favor, fear and favor. I didn't want. Just as Muli, how are you? It's no matter without fear and favor. Because I'm not under any ethics of journalism. No. I want my ethics which govern them. I'm watching live from Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks, my brother Justice. How are you? So if you look at, I'm good, sir. So if you look at what happened when Mugabe left the president or left Zimbabwe, a lot of things happened, and a lot of things are happening. People are dying in their thousands in our country from different diseases, communicable diseases that can be treated. People are dying in numbers, and there's massive migration. People are sleeping at passport office to try and grab a passport and leave for greener pastures. Widespread fast violence is another issue that Zimbabweans are fleeing from. That this forever associates of Zimbabwe, a CIO grouping, has caused a lot of violence in the country, a lot of abductions and a lot of killings. So Zimbabweans are leaving Zimbabwe. They are packing their bags and are leaving. Hopewatching Ngono has urged them to leave in millions if you can. Brother, you the long time, how are you? Watching you live from Joburg, South Africa. Manja Ibrahim Silas, I am well, my brother, I am well. So this is what is happening in Zimbabwe. So there is a way forward, ladies and gentlemen, in everything that people are saying, things that people are doing, those who are fleeing Zimbabwe and those who are waiting to die in Zimbabwe. When you are in Zimbabwe at this juncture, you are waiting your fate. You either die from cholera. If you don't die from cholera, the FARS will come abduct you, torture you, and kill you. If they don't do that, there's widespread violence from youth militias. So Zimbabweans who are in Zimbabwe at this juncture, they've got their lips zipped up, because if you try to open your mouth, that's the end of you. You meet your fate. So this is why the renowned journalists like 𝐃𝐤 is urging Zimbabweans to leave in thousands. He's saying, leave this country in thousands if you want your life. May the Almighty God remember them. Power comes and changes tune anytime. It's a matter of time. Thank you, Justice. So there is a way forward, ladies and gentlemen, rather than running away from our country or running away from Zimbabwe, to leave that country in millions. There is a way forward. The first thing that we should do is let's expose the true horror of Zimbabwe to the international community. This is the first thing that I'm appealing to the people of Zimbabwe for. That we are under an unseen horror before in Africa or in our country. So we need to expose this horror, to expose our situation, to make our situation known to international community, because the international community right now, they are occupied by the Russian the Russian war, Russia, Ukraine, Syria war, and quite a number of wars are at play because they want to stabilize the world economy. The world economy is tumbling. If you come to UK, mabanza taitenga 99p. We are buying them at £1.35 mlidu. So things have shot up. As we have been exposing these things, and no one cares. It's at the floor. It's not no one cares. At this juncture, they've turned a blind eye, because we have exposed it, but we never acted. That's the problem. We exposed it and we never acted. If they look at our situation compared to what is happening in Ukraine, their priority is Ukraine. Comparing to what is happening to Russia, their priority is Russia. This is why you see international community, they are coming together. They want to fight Russia. They are saying, no. Russia has become a bully and it doesn't understand. It's just invading other countries, killing innocent people and children of those countries. So they are now ready to attack Russia. So we might see world war. Third World War is coming now. It's certain that we will be in Third World War. Mulibwanji mbale wanga iche wanji Malvin. So that is what is happening. We have exposed ourselves to the international community, the horrors, the true horrors of Zimbabwe. In our situation, we've exposed it to them. They never acted. It's because we exposed it and remain dormant. We never did anything. So this is an abject failure of ourselves, because recently we were hoping on SADC, and the SADC and the international community. SADC itself has failed. And Comrade Jude, good evening, watching you live from Kremlin. Thank you so much, General, thank you so much. So if you look at what is happening now, so Zimbabweans were basing on SADC. But if you look at the SADC is very occupied with the DRC situation. They initiated military intervention in Congo, which is a correct course. When you are faced with such type of situation, the correct course is to initiate a military intervention. And SADC is moving into DRC to try and help the Congolese government repel the rebels who are M23 and wakomana wacho. So this is exactly what is happening with the SADC. SADC is preoccupied where violence is rampant. I think people should stand up in Zimbabwe. Out of Zimbabwe, the world doesn't care. That is my position. That is my point today, to say, look, that must be a way forward, because we are hoping with the international community and SADC intervention, but the international community is preoccupied with what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. If you come to SADC, is preoccupied with what is happening in DRC, and what is happening in DRC is the correct path, the correct course of SADC. They must intervene there militarily. Fortunately, Zimbabwe has been excluded this time. They can't send their soldiers there because Zimbabwe does not have a legitimate government. So President Chamisa, if you look at him, he has pushed for consensus-based regional solution. He has written to SADC. He has done that. Remember, he wrote to SADC about the job scalar issue. He wrote to SADC about the rigged elections. He wrote to SADC about the dictatorship that is happening now, snatching CCC seats and so forth, to create a one-party state, to garner two-thirds majority, ZANU-PF. So if you look at that, the regional solution that all Zimbabweans hoped can come early, it hasn't come, and people are now doubting that the regional intervention will ever happen in Zimbabwe and see fresh free pools in our country. So this is the situation that is endangering the lives of Zimbabweans, and this is why the likes of 𝐃𝐤𝐿 are urging Zimbabweans to leave that country in millions if they can. In Zimbabwe, we have to ourselves ndo zvega zvatamirira. Thank you Mkoma, no bed no rest beto. Alice man Monzan, how are you? So some are saying the solution is to arm and train Zimbabwe's opposition in a coordinated and comprehensive way, because no one must stop us from arming ourselves, from training militarily ourselves, because if we do that, we can be able to protect our civilians against the oppressive government of Idi Mnangagwa. If we can move into Zimbabwe after receiving arms and after receiving training, military training, we can move into Zimbabwe to try and help the citizens of a country who are reeling under the dictatorship of Idi Mnangagwa and the military. But before embarking on that route, this is the way forward that the Zimbabweans are asking on daily basis. What is the way forward? What is the way forward? The way forward, I'm telling you, is to get training, military training, is to arm ourselves and move into Zimbabwe to protect our parents, to protect our mothers, to protect the civilians who are being butchered by FARS on daily basis. This is the only way forward that Zimbabweans can do. We just need coordination. We just need a comprehensive way of doing it, so that we can be accepted by the international community. What we need is recognition. Because once we do that, move into Zimbabwe, we are not going to start a war, but we are going to protect the citizens of that country. The military in Zimbabwe, the soldiers in Zimbabwe are all ZANU-PF militias. The police are all ZANU-PF militias. The prisons is filled with ZANU-PF militias. Those people cannot be entrusted in looking after prisons. Our soldiers cannot be trusted with the defense of that country. The police have failed to maintain law and order. I'll point at certain things that the police have failed. If you look at the judges, all our judges are now MDs, ZANU-PF activists. If you look at their bogus judgments that they've handed down since Mnangagwa took over president of Zimbabwe. And now we are on hostage. The ZANU-PF, they are doing it willingly. They know Zimbabweans can't do anything. So the only way forward is a coordinated and comprehensive training to train the opposition youth. We train the opposition youth, military training. We need to receive military training. We need to receive arms of war just to move into Zimbabwe to protect our citizens, to protect our parents, to protect our properties. Because as it stands now, the ZNA has been turned into youth militia, into protecting the interests of ZANU-PF. So we don't have a national army. We have got a party army. When we have got a political party army, you need, if there is another political party, they need their own army as well. They need their own police as well. They need their own air force. They need their own prison officers. You understand what I mean? So it's time that we follow what Zimbabweans want, what the Zimbabweans are saying. That the only solution is to arm ourselves and train and receive military training as opposition. Then this has to be done in a coordinated and a comprehensive way. But before embarking on that route, I need Zimbabweans to consider a lot of things before embarking on that route. The first thing you should consider before you take that new course is what this might end in. Before embarking on a new course that might culminate in a military solution, you need to consider a lot of things. Let's consider or review success rate at military removal of dictators in Africa and world at large. A very good example is Libya. You saw what happened in Libya. After a dictator who has ruled Libya for decades, who was killing Libyans at will, who was giving his relatives government positions, who was employing his tribe only in government, who made sure that his tribe cannot suffer, and introduced state benefits which benefited only his tribe. Go to Libya today. His tribe are the ones who have got mansions, are the ones who used to live in towns, are the ones who used to own the production, oil production. They were Gaddafi's tribe, Gaddafi's children, Gaddafi's relatives. Like what is happening in Zimbabwe today? The ZBC belongs to Mnangagwa's cousin. The Minister of Information now belongs to George Charamba's girlfriend. You see, quite a lot of things. A lot of things are happening. It's exactly the way Gaddafi did in Libya. And outsiders who did not understand why Gaddafi was removed, they say a lot of things. Hey, Gaddafi used to give his people benefits. Hey, because not all the Libyans were receiving those benefits. Not all Libyans had the companies of mining oil in there. No, it was Gaddafi's close elite, Gaddafi's children, Gaddafi's relatives who owned all those oil wells in Libya. And that was in the eyes of the Libyans, until the Libyans got angry and they got rid of that dictator. So Libya is a long way from becoming a coherent nation. It's because it stayed in a dictatorship for too long. And when the dictator was removed, a lot of things have been destroyed in Libya. And it will take time to restore those things. But luckily now, the state is now owning oil production, and hope they will rebuild Libya. Because there are still remnants of Gaddafi who are forming a pocket of resistance, sabotaging the economy of Libya. But let's hope with the due time, Libya will be back to normal, and the Libyans will start enjoying the fruits of their nation. Atete Constance, how are you? So if we look at Iraq, it's another country, Iraq, that dictatorship was eventually removed. Iraqis were helped by America to remove Saddam Hussein. There is a protracted conflict which thousands of people died or are still dying in Iraq. But eventually, those pockets of resistance will die, and the Iraqis will take over control of their nation. At the moment, they are not. It's not a coherent country, because those remnants of Saddam are still fighting, and they still want to topple the current government. But eventually, things will settle down because there is nowhere Gaddafi will walk again in this world. There is nowhere Saddam Hussein will walk again in this world. These are two dictators or silly or stupid dictators who thought they own that countries, they own their countries, who left this world in half, and they will never walk again. Gaddafi today has no grave. He has no grave. Nobody knows where Gaddafi was buried. And I don't know about Saddam, but nobody knows where Gaddafi was buried. So the removal of dictators must be considered seriously before embarking on a new course or in a military manner that will eventually culminate into a military action or solution. You must consider quite a lot of things. Go to Tunisia today. They overthrew a dictator by all themselves, with no help from America, with no help from Britain, with no help from any other country. The Arab Spring started in Tunisia. There was a gentleman in Tunisia who went before the army, who used to shoot and kill people, and he set himself alight. When people saw it, they started running to douse that fire off. And when the army was advancing, and people started attacking the army, as a result, the dictator was removed in Tunisia. Baba Maswera Langi, how are you? So you see how the removal of the dictator in Tunisia unfolded. So this is why I'm saying Zimbabweans, you need serious considerations before embarking on a new course that might culminate in a military solution. Let's look into these countries. How did they do it? And how do they look today? Already Zimbabwe is in ruins. If we take on head on the dictator, some properties might be destroyed and life might be lost, but eventually we can still regain control of that country and build it. It takes years to build it, but we cannot continue under the situation that we live in. So Zimbabwe can provide freedom from Tehran themselves. You can do it yourselves, Zimbabweans. Tunisians did it themselves without help from anyone. So this is one of the surest way to remove ZANU-PF. If you are dedicated, if you feel like you need to free yourself, you can provide freedom for yourself. You can provide this freedom from this Tehran if you sit down and consider it critically what I've stated above. We need to receive external assistance. Some people think that if we receive external assistance, then we might need arms we might need cash to remove this dictator. If we receive those things, we might remove a dictator. Because the Tunisians did it by themselves. They did not receive any support or any help from the Western countries. They did it by themselves. So if you ask a Zimbabwean today, he will tell you that we need to receive external assistance. Zimbabweans need external assistance in terms of arms and cash so that they can remove dictatorship in our country. Atikasimuka tinopera mukoma. Nyika yedu yaitwa chiseko na chivayo. Adida zvapakaoma. So what I'm saying here is Zimbabweans, I'm saying mukoma no beto, that Zimbabweans can provide freedom from a tyrant if people consider what I've stated above, to say, look, let's look into other countries like Libya, Iraq, Tunisia. I've left Egypt, I've left Sudan, I've left Niger. These are some of the countries that saw change recently. Because these guys, they made sure that they wanted to remove these dictators. They said, yes, we can do it. And they did it. So one of the surest way to remove ZANU-PF, according to other people I've interviewed or I've spoken to, a lot of people believe that if we receive external support or external assistance in terms of arms of war and cash, definitely ZANU-PF will go. Because people are saying they are ready. Quite a number of Zimbabweans are struggling if you go to South Africa. You go in other countries. South Africa, today I saw a video of Zimbabweans queuing for jobs in ships. And they were being laughed at. So those people, if you talk to them, I've spoken to some of them, they are said, Mkoma Shepherd, we only need external assistance. And if we get arms and cash, definitely ZANU-PF will go. This is what people think. But we need, and if you decide that you guys need to personally fight and consolidate political power, if you think about getting external assistance, getting arms of war, getting cash, but you definitely need to personally fight. Because there is nowhere people can go source funds, go source cash, and give you cash whilst you are not fighting. You need to be personally involved in this fight. Zimbabweans varikutambura, guy. People are struggling in South Africa. If you go to South Africa, it's shame that people are struggling. This is why when I spoke to them this afternoon, they were telling me that we need to personally fight and consolidate political power. Because what we want to achieve is freedom from the dictatorship, freedom from this tyrant. So a lot of people raised their concerns. People are ready, Ngoma, tawakuda kugara kwedu, but that situation iriko iyo azibudi. This is why I've spoken to a number of people who were queuing today to get jobs. Some of them queued since yesterday. Some of them Friday queuing to get jobs in ships. Because they want, what they just want, I think, is get out of Africa. They want to get out of Africa. So most of them had this belief, or they thought that if we personally fight in this, once we get external assistance, then we go fight there personally and we take over political control of Zimbabwe. We would have achieved what we need most. What we need most now is freedom from Tehran. Because no freedom from Tehran on a silver platter. This is what I assured them. That if you want freedom from dictatorship in Zimbabwe, that freedom won't come in a silver platter. You need to personally involve yourself. You need to fight, even if we get assistance from any other country. Because there is no country that is going to assist you with the soldiers. There is no country that is going to assist you in this war. But you need to personally get involved to free your country, to free yourselves. So this is what I assured those guys. Even military, Zimbabwe military, can decisively turn the tables against ZANU-PF and ED once they know that Zimbabweans have started or has initiated a military solution to free themselves, or they've initiated a military solution to gain freedom from Tehran. The Zimbabwe military is best assured will decisively turn the tables upside against ZANU-PF and Mnangagwa. So our opposition, ladies and gentlemen, is a long way from matching the charade of unit, essential like what we are seeing in Libya. In Libya, they formed what they call Libya National Transitional Council. That Transitional Council, after they removed these Madalas, they formed it to stabilize Libya. Because what they were doing is they were eliciting foreign support and gain diplomatic recognition, which I have also stated here, that you guys need to come together. When you come together, if you think that you need to personally involve in this fight, first of all, what we need to gain is foreign support. For that foreign support to come, we must all be agreeing on one thing, that we are taking ZANU-PF or a dictatorship head on in our country. What we need to seek first is what we need to gain diplomatic recognition. Because if we don't gain diplomatic recognition in such a situation, we will be labeled terrorists. And you know, once you are labeled terrorists, you know, you won't be welcome even in Britain, you won't be welcome even in America, anywhere in the world. So what we just need to do is take away the label terrorists or terrorism and put a diplomatically recognized name to say, look, we want to fight Zimbabwe army. We want to fight dictatorship. Because you cannot go and fight Zimbabwe National Army for no cause. One, I have stated here that Zimbabwe National Army has been turned into a youth militia. It's a militia. It's no longer a national army. It's a ZANU-PF militia that is masquerading as Zimbabwe National Army. So we will be pitted against a ZANU-PF youth militia. But because if you don't seek recognition, international recognition, you will be labeled terrorists. Because you are attacking a country that has got a national army. In this case now, Zimbabwe has got no national army. It has got youth militia, which is masquerading as national army. And their duty is to protect ZANU-PF. And they will never protect the opposition under what circumstances. So you need foreign support. You need to gain diplomatic recognition to avoid being called terrorists in that country. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look in 1979, 14 years after Smith declared UDI or independence, independence with the majority rule was finally achieved. After 14 years of UDI, people being reeling under the oppression of Ian Smith for 14 years. And eventually in 1980, Zimbabweans gained independence. They gained independence by, by going outside Zimbabwe to seek support from other countries. They received training from different countries, Vana Tanzania, Vana Mozambique, Angola, Vana Egypt, Romania, the Eastern Bloc, Vana Bulgaria, Vana Russia and China. They all offered ZANU-PF and ZIPRA training. ZANLA were trained by the Chinese, ZIPRA trained by the Russians. These guys came out of those institutions well trained and capable of fighting a military force that Smith had created. Smith had an effective military tactics that he used against ZANLA and ZIPRA forces. But eventually, in 1980, these ZIPRAs and ZANLAs achieved what they went to Russia to train and fight for. They were the Marxists. That was their ideology. They went to China to train to fight Ian Smith. And what did they do? They first seek recognition from the international community to avoid them being labeled as terrorists. These were freedom fighters. And the British aided them by putting Smith under severe sanctions, which crippled the economy that eventually collapsed, that Rhodesia Front eventually collapsed in 1980. So what I'm saying here is they only did it by gaining international pressure to aid economic sanctions against Ian Smith, and Zimbabweans can still do the same. Because if you look at Zimbabwe now, it has become Africa's security risk, political risk, and it is a developmental threat in SADC. You understand? So by that we are a security risk in the region, we are a political risk or threat in the region, because what is happening now politically is spilling into South Africa. South Africa is carrying the burden of Zimbabwe government. Botswana is carrying the burden of Zimbabwe government. Namibia is carrying the burden of of Zimbabwe government. Mozambique is carrying the burden of Zimbabwe government. Malawi, the same. So by doing that, if we find recognition, international recognition, we stop our country to become a security threat in the region. We stop our country to become a political threat in the region. We stop our country to become a developmental threat in the region. We can only do that when there is international pressure to aid, especially in economic sanctions. In a similar way, the international community aided economic sanctions against Ian Smith. History repeats itself. What we are seeking, even Zobo had to address the United Nations to say, look, the forthcoming elections are rigged, and the sanctions must be put, and that election must be condemned. That was Edson Zobo when he, in 1978, addressing the United Nations. So we are following Edson Zobo's address, because you saw a sham election which was condemned by international community on the 23rd of August 2023. And Zimbabwe is under soft sanctions where individuals are targeted for corruption and the promotion of violence. But Zobo said there must be total severe sanctions against those who are rigging elections, and they must never be allowed to patronize another country, United Nations country. This is a similar situation that we have today. We have never called for sanctions against Zimbabwe, but it's high time that the international community consider those economic embargoes, not these soft sanctions. This will put pressure on ZANU-PF. In a similar way, they put pressure on Ian Smith, and eventually we will win our country and make sure we are no longer a security risk, a political risk, a developmental threat in the region. And if you look at that, a lot of things Zobo said there, we are saying the same. That look, if Zimbabwe is free, you cannot give amnesty to torture, to torturers. You cannot give amnesty to rapists. You cannot give amnesty to corrupt people, people who have engaged in crimes against humanity. You cannot pardon them. You cannot give them amnesty. And this is what ZANU-PF is scared about. They are scared of languishing in prison. Some will die in prison because of the torture that they did, the corruption that they did, and the rape that they did. Every election, women in Zimbabwe are raped. Every election, women are killed. Every election, people are bludgeoned to death by ZANU-PF. Every election, properties are destroyed. Houses are burnt. So ZANU-PF, they are so scared. If they lose power, they know that the incoming government will never give amnesty to those who engaged in crimes against humanity. And that must be another factor that we can utilize as Zimbabweans to say, look, we want to fight these rapists. We want to fight these torturers. We want to fight these people engaged in human rights abuses. And these people must feel the heat. Most of them are candidates for the International Court of Justice. They must be arraigned to international courts for the crimes that they committed in our country. So if you look at what I've stated so far, I've looked into the allies of ZANU-PF, the foreign countries that helped ZANU-PF to achieve their goal, that helped ZAPU to achieve their goal. These were two main parties which were opposed to Mr. Smith's supremacist, white supremacist Rhodesian Front regime in the 60s, in the 70s. So ZIPRA and ZANLA, they stood firm. They came together. They fought Ian Smith. They did not fight Ian Smith because he was white. No. They fought Ian Smith because he was tyrannical in a similar way that Mnangagwa today is adopted. And their cries, they drew support largely from Mozambique, I have stated that, Tanzania, Botswana, Angola, commonly known as frontline states. But they cried to the frontline states that, look, so what Smith is doing. Remember, Smith had 20 seats which were reserved for white people only. You were never going to take those seats. They remained Rhodesian front seats. Mnangagwa tried to do the same. Tried to create those type of seats. Went to Matabele and tried to prevent 12 members of parliament from contesting. After they contested, they created the Shabang. Look at what is happening. The chaos that Zimbabwe is in. That is the chaos that we must put a stop to. We must put a stop to. So if you see ZIPRA and the ZANLA or ZANU and ZAPU during the 70s and 60s, they drew support largely from the frontline states, which included Mozambique, Tanzania, Botswana, and Angola. And they went as far as, or they went beyond Africa to China, where they received military assistance and training. Chinese were looking at Shona tribes only. Then the Ndeweles were armed and trained by the Russia, by the Soviet Union, and the Eastern Bloc. When we look at countries in the Eastern Bloc, they went to Czechoslovakia, most of them. They were in Bulgaria, they were in Hungary, and Romania. I'm not sure about West Germany. But this is the Eastern Bloc where they went to receive training, to come back and fight Ian Smith, who had declared UDI in our country, who said never in 1,000 years for Zimbabwe to be ruled by a black person. So black people saw it fit to say, look, this is enough. Let's go for it and let's go and fight Ian Smith. So what we have witnessed now after the demise of Smith, we went into the era of Robert Mugabe. We suffered a lot under Robert Mugabe. And the people thought Mnangagwa had learned a lesson from Mugabe's failures. This is why, if you know Namchangwa, they were saying, if you walk in Harare, you can hardly see skyscrapers. If you walk in Harare, there are sewages, dirt everywhere because of Mugabe's misgovernance. And if you ask Mugabe, why do we have rubbish in Harare in the city center? Why do we have potholes in the city center? Mugabe will tell you that we are under sanctions. And Muchangwa clearly stated that if you cannot have a solution or have an idea how these sanctions must be removed, then you are not a capable leader. You should pass on the baton. And when these ZANU-PF goons or the elite passed on the baton to Mnangagwa, they thought Mnangagwa had an idea. He had learned from Mugabe's mistakes. Now it is clearly clear that he never learned anything from Mugabe. Instead, he has worsened. He has gone worse than what Mugabe did. And Zimbabwe now is like as dead as dodo, according to Chingono, Henry Chingono. You understand? Now, if you see, after the elections, Mnangagwa failed to garner 2/3 majority, that he cannot move, he cannot do anything. By so doing, he had to initiate the recalls with the with the Shabangu, and after those recalls now, ZANU-PF has managed to achieve the 2/3 majority, and the ZANU-PF is now the dominant party in our political scenario. They have got now power to restructure and attempt to manipulate our constitution as they did to the electoral processes. Now, the problem now with the ED is fortunately, Mnangagwa is different from Robert Mugabe. Robert Mugabe was a cunning devil. If you look at Mnangagwa, he lacked political skills as compared to Robert Mugabe. Mnangagwa lacks the ability of an orator, these oratory abilities and the communication. He cannot even make Zimbabweans cry. I've listened to Mnangagwa since he became president. He is not an orator. His way of communication, he cannot shoot people into one thing. If you listen to Nelson Chamisa and compare him to Mnangagwa, you can tell that Nelson Chamisa can leave you in tears. His address every time leaves Zimbabweans in tears. He leaves Zimbabweans with this passion of fighting, which Mnangagwa has failed. So he is not, he doesn't have this oratory ability. He doesn't have this communication abilities to shoot Zimbabweans into doing something. So he lacks charismatic leadership. He doesn't have the charismatic leadership. This is why you see if Chamisa walks or goes everywhere in Zimbabwe, people mob him because he has got this charismatic leadership. If Mnangagwa walks alone, people will beat him up. I still remember in the early 80s when Mugabe became prime minister, every Zimbabwean wanted to greet Mugabe. Every Zimbabwean wanted to touch Mugabe, wanted to feel Mugabe, because he was like a wonder boy, a wonder son of Africa, a wonder son of Zimbabwe. You can't compare Mugabe and Mnangagwa. That does not work. Mnangagwa lacks this charismatic leadership that Mugabe had. He lacks the charismatic leadership that Chamisa have. Today, put Mnangagwa there to walk alone. Asina mabasi. Ngapinde mu Harare, kana tangoenda pa Praza anongonomira, apana vanhu vanouya kuzomuona. Chamisa ngaangoenda chete, Praza rese rinomhanya kunoona Chamisa. So these are the two differences between the two leaders. Luckily, not held in great affection. Mnangagwa is not held in great affection by elements of Zimbabwe population. Zimbabwe population does not hold Mnangagwa with great affection as compared to Nelson Chamisa. So in Nelson Chamisa, we have got a national leader. In Mnangagwa, we've got a cult leader. These are the differences between the two. So with the 2/3 majority that Mnangagwa claim to have swept for ZANU-PF, clean sweep for ZANU-PF in yesterday's by-elections, because the court assisted Mnangagwa to win these cities. They removed the people's choice. So the people did not go to vote. And now Mnangagwa is claiming that he swept clean in the by-elections. Zvakazvitaurwa na 𝐃𝐨𝐿𝐬 zvikanzi unodaidzira by-election, unoisa macandidates ako, wonozvikondesta wega, woisa ZEC yako yokupa maresults, wozvikorokotedza kuti wawina. Nhasi ndatombobhiga mupana 𝐃𝐨𝐿𝐬. Because this is what we are witnessing on Saturday, that there is a political party in Zimbabwe that is called for by-election, that has recalled elected members of parliament, called for by-election, used the courts to bar those recalled from contesting, then put his own candidates he wants, go and contest with them, and say, I've won all the seats. This is what ZANU-PF has done. So what he was just aiming for is to gain 2/3 majority. They wanted just 6 seats, which they grabbed in Zimbabwe. So the ruling ZANU-PF part, according to them, they've swept to victory in all the 6 National Assembly constituencies whereby elections were held on Saturday, 3 February 2024. That means they've gained a 2/3 majority in parliament. ZANU-PF now commands the 2/3 majority in the National Assembly. Because they won Chegutu West, they didn't win, but they just grabbed Chegutu West. They grabbed Seke, they grabbed Goromon South, they grabbed Mukoba North, they grabbed Pelandawa, Shabalala. You still remember, Ndokaiwe kune double candidate, Yekwana Shaba Soneni Moyo, she was the double candidate in 23 August. Then they've got Zimba. The ZANU-PF have never lost Zimba, but they lost it to Triple C. So 5 other constituencies were contested and elected after High Court removed candidates registered under 𝐶𝐶. High Court has got their own 𝐶𝐶. I'm going to look into the High Court 𝐶𝐶 and you really understand what is going to happen here. You still remember that before 23rd election, August 23rd election, ZANU-PF wanted to grab 12 constituencies in Bulawayo uncontested. If you still remember that. Right? Then 𝐶𝐶 approached the Electoral Court, challenging the decision of National Council or challenge the decisions of NC to accept parliamentary candidates who were not on party lists. Remember, in 2023 August, before that, when people went to the elections, as idiotic speeches zamuvhuti anditere ngoona face ndovhara phone yangu avoid kupedza data rangu. So if you look at what happened is, before elections, remember I did a live praising President Chamisa's method of selecting candidates. I rest assure you that no candidate was imposed by 𝐶𝐶. What happened is President Nelson Chamisa gave the people of Zimbabwe opportunity to choose a candidate of their choice. Because he said, if we give you our candidate, maybe that is not the candidate you want. So in every constituency, even kana candidate enyari wezanu wamunoda, muisei amire 𝐶𝐶. Even kana ibva kune another political party, as long as the constituents want that candidate, muisei ave candidate yenyu. No one was imposed by Nelson Chamisa. He was never involved in the selection process. The constituencies were the ones that that involved themselves in choosing a candidate of their choice. So if someone comes to you and say Chamisa imposed the candidates, that's hogwash. That's not true. That can only be said kuvanhu vasingarizini, vasingafunge vega, vanenge vachimirira kufungirwa nevamwe vanhu. But we were given opportunity in constituencies to choose members of parliament of our choice. And those people who were on the party list, which was given to the nomination court, which was given to the ZAC, which was given to ZAC, there was a list of 𝐶𝐶 candidates who were nominated by the constituents or elected by the constituencies. It was forwarded to ZAC, and there was party symbol that was going to be used by these candidates. There were signatories to them who will say, yes, the party has chosen this one, or the constituents, they've chosen this one. So the High Court, you remember the High Court, when the challenges were done, the High Court itself the High Court did not remove the double candidates. But surprisingly, on these by-elections, the High Court removed 𝐶𝐶 double candidates and left one candidate from the Shavang camp, and the High Court chose who was going to contest this election. It was not to Shavang or Rozan or what, but it was the High Court. The same High Court that allowed 𝐶𝐶 double candidates in the 2023 election is the same High Court that barred double candidates in the by-elections. So you can see that there is bias in these bogus judgments which were handed down by the same High Court. The same High Court allowed 𝐶𝐶 candidates who forged the signatures to file nomination papers for August 23 elections 2024. And that same High Court denied CCC double candidates in the by-election and allowed only Shavangu's candidates. You know, when I was looking at the results, I was so impressed by the results. Because no Shavangu candidate won in this election. None of them won. At all. None of them won in this election. Unaona kunonzi kurangwa na Mwari. Shavangu rangu bwaira izvozvizvo. And rabvuma apa ndo pamunoona CCC yafa. Kana raifunga kuti rabata jackpot pa CCC zvavharana izvo. None of Shavangu's candidates won up. And the candidates, Shavangu's candidates, they forged the CCC signatures for August 2023 elections. They forged CCC signatures on their nomination papers in connivance with the CIOs, the Forever Association of Zimbabwe, Associates of Zimbabwe. Shavangu and the FAZ, they forged the CCC signatures and fielded double candidates. These candidates, a good example, that guy, Andrew Mutsao, in Kariba, the party even went to file criminal charges against him, the fraudulent charges, but the police refused to arrest him. This guy had forged the signatures and stood as a double candidate for CCC. The police, the Zimbabwe Republic Police, refused to take action against someone who forged the papers. If we end up in Zimbabwe and forge a birth certificate, you go to prison. Go to Zimbabwe today and forge your ID paper, you go to prison. We have got candidates who forged the signatures to stand as CCC candidates. A police report was made. They were never arrested. Never arrested. This is why I've said that we need a new police force. We don't need youth militias who are acting as police in our country to continue doing that. They were given a report that someone had forged signatures to stand as our candidate. They never arrested. They never acted. So CCC lost all the cases that they brought against the 47 double candidates in the High Court. There were 47 double candidates in the High Court. 50 out of those 47, 15 constituencies were in Harare alone. Every constituency in Harare had double candidates. ZANU-PF was trying to wrestle constituencies in Harare by conniving with the FAZ and the Shavangu to put double candidates in Harare. A good example, and these double candidates, they fraudulently filed nomination papers as members of the party, but they were not on the list of those who were forwarded by the constituencies. If you go to Sunningdale, I'm going to name and shame them. And the rest 7 MPs, I'm going to name and shame them. This Sunningdale constituents, there was a double candidate from Shavangu, known as Christmas Goremsandu. He stood as double candidate for Shavangu. This guy was even sponsored by FAZ to register as CCC candidate in Sunningdale. If you go to Mount Pleasant, there was Jonathan Machokoto, who were funded by ZANU-PF and the FAZ to stand against Fadzai Mahere. If you go to St. Mary's, there is Freddy Masarirevu. I've always maintained this, that this guy is the one who made sure that Job Scholar languished in prison. I'm not going to say a lot about the Masarirevu's, but I want Zimbabweans to know that I know the family. This guy is from, this guy, I can safely say, he's a CIO. I can safely say that. I've even warned 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 about this gentleman. I've warned 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 on several occasions about this gentleman. And I told people that if you want to know more about this guy, come to my inbox. I know a lot about this guy. Vamwe ndakatozovataurira vakashamisika. Vamwe ndavaudza vakatozoenda kunoverify information andakavapa kuti vazive kuti who is this Fred Masarirevhu. And I'm surprised that he was so close to 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬. Ndakati mapoliticians enyaya ka vana 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 vanongobatwa pahuro sehuku, anongourawa sehuku because munhu anofungidzira kuti ndibhururu wake chaiye haasi bhururu wake. I've warned this gentleman on several occasions that beware of this young man. Haasi an ordinary citizen uyu, musori uyu. And poison unoidya wakatemba ukarova pasi. 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 akasvika pakunhongwa musilingi. Vakanyepera ndijimi kunaka. Ndikavaudza mupana anonzi Masarirevhu uyu, be very careful naye. Hapana paihwanda 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 asingaburwe nemapurisa. Hapana. But pataitaura anga asingateereri. And nanhasi haasi kuteerera. 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 is not listening. Saka hanzi ukaona murume mukuru muchiti mukamubatsira mukamuudza oramba kuteerera, hanzi muregei azvionere. Regai 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 azvionere. He must beware of this Fred Masarirevhu. Hapana 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 painohwanda mapurisa vasingamuwane. Hapana. 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 achifamba achiendapo mapurisa aitoziva 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 ari papi. Akagara musango achigirwa sadza, mapurisa vatoziva 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 ari musango arudya sadza, ari pakati. They were just waiting to pound on him kusvika vazomubata. Imagine how big 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 is. Ari kunzi akabuda musilingi. Imi ndakambomutaurira ngati beware of this Masarirevhu. And that is Masarirevhu. He became a double candidate for CCC ku St. Mary's. Ndakabvunza ndikati akasainirwa nani mapepa. Until now, he himself cannot answer that question. We have tried to push him to answer who signed for your nomination papers. And he threw 𝐃𝐤𝐞𝐬 under the bus. Saka Scala ngamboti akasateerera anowisirwa pasi. Batai kutaura kwangu. Batai kutaura kwangu. Saka ndapedza ipapo tikabva ku Mount Pleasant toenda ku St. Mary's kwakune madouble candidates. Warren Park yanga ine double candidate. Kwaione uyu anonzi Batika. Handiri kutaura zvakawanda pana Energy Matika. Energy Matika kana achindinzwa ari kutoziva zvandiri kutaura panapa. I'm not going to say a lot about this gentleman. But he became a double candidate in Warren Park. This Energy Matika. Mukabva papo moenda kuHarare South. Kwakune 2 people who stood as +3 wedu. Kwakuna George Gweta nemumwe ainzi Hasha Trouble. Mukangosvika pane seri kuti Hasha Trouble, mobva matoisa full stop ipapo. Endai kuregistrar's office monotsvaga birth certificate raHasha Trouble, monotsvaga ID yaHasha Trouble. Mundiudze kuti record raHasha Trouble rakacreatwa gore ripi. Munhu anonzi Hasha Trouble, record rake rakacreatwa gore ripi. Endai munofukura information iyoyo. Then you will know that these people had totally nothing to do with opposition. Ku Heathcliff kwakuna Lloyd Sunday. Ku Unyani kwakuna Terence Kumbula. Ku Epworth kwakune 2 foot. Solomon anzi Baramasimbe. Nemumwe anzi Didmas Bande. Because ZANU-PF yanga yaisa chechi mufana chikuda kuba mbudzi, chimbabva chembudzi chechi. Saka vakatoona kuti tikasachisira ma-triple candidates chimbabva chembudzi chinorohwa. But chakatsvairwa zvakadaro. iEpworth. Harare Central kwaive naIvan Nyanhingwe. Vanhu ava imbozvibvunzai kuti why vese vakanga vari varume chete. Where did these candidates came from? Harare East kwaive naMalvin Razaro. Malvin Razaro. Abva andifungisa vanoziva kuHarare East. Uri muna Pringu Road uchikwidza kuenda kuchikurubhi. Wakutonosvika kuchikurubhi ukapfuura kabridge kai. Wakutonosvika kugedhi rekuchikurubhi kai. Paine imba imwe mudhara aigara pamuCIO uya. Ndakanganwa kuti ainzi aniko mudhara uya. Aive muCIO. Ainetsa zvisingaiti mudhara iyeye. Akazombovhura kashopu paMandara. PaMandara aive nekashopu kake paMandara mudhara iyeye. Ari muCIO. Pakashopi papa ndo paishanda iri baranzi ronzi Razaro. Malvin Razaro aishanda pakashopu kemudhara iyeye. muCIO ainzi aniko mudhara. Ndichabvunza zita rake, ndakanganwa kubvunza masikatana kuti ainzi ani mudhara iyeye. Akazombovhura kashopu kake kagrocery shopu kake paMandara paipa. Saka ndati mutsvage mazita, zita remunhu anonzi Hasha Trouble naMalvin Razaro. Tsvagai mazita evanhu ivava. Muone kuti marekodzi avo akiretwa rini. kuHarare West kwakuna Farai Padzarondora. Kuchitungwiza kwakuna Enoch Chitoro. Hama yaBig Chitoro. Vanoziva Big Chitoro kuBikita. Kana pane vanhu vakamboenda kuBikita by election. Kwaine mumwe munhu ainzi Big Chitoro aiuraya vanhu singaiti. Iye akapedza vanhu kuchikwira Chivhu kuchina Bikita kwese masvingo. Aiye akapedza vanhu ainzi Big Chitoro. Aizviti muwo veteran. Handizivi kana achipo because ndakabvunza kuti akanga akutambura nengozi imwe yakapenga so. Saka uyu munin'ina wacho anonzi Enoch Chitoro akanomira kuchitungwiza North as a double candidate for CCC. Saka muri kuona link yevanhu ava kuti vanhu vakanga vaitozivana vakatoka forwarded neZANU-PF. Kuchitungwiza South kwakuna mumwe anonzi Karimazondo. Uyu regai ndirege kutaura anzi Karira Mombe. Ainzi Karira Mombe kwete Karimazondo, ainzi Karira Mombe. First name yake handidi kutaura because ndikatukwa nevanhu. Kuti munhu anonzi Karira Mombe uyu kuzviite kuti anonzi Shepherd. Iwe vana Shepherd we are blessed man. Hakuna Shepherd akapusa zvakaita so. Ndo akaenda kunostenda as double candidate kuchitungwiza. Kuchitungwiza South. Kuchuru famu kuchuru. Kuprazi redu. Kuchuru kakuprazi kwedu. Kuprazi rasekuru wangu kadera. Rakatorwa negovernment. Sekuru vati vana veZimbabwe havana pekugara. Chiregai ndibvarure prazi rangu ndiye accommodate vana veZimbabwe. ZANU-PF yakatora ikabvisa vanhu ipapo. Kwave nebenzi rinonzi tichaona nyika dzino. Handichada kuenda detail nezita rekuti nyika dzino. Because yebhunga ndikuvadza panapa. Handisi kutaura iwewe but dhara iwewe. Bhururu wako tichaona. Akasvika akabvongodza muto. Tukwakaimba akati hanzi vanobvongodza muto kuseva kwevakaguta. Chimusoro. Ndo vana chimusoro. Vasinganyari kubvongodza supu kuseva sevakaguta. But the good part is reganditi makorokoto to the intelligence department CCC pakashandwa apa. Vanhu ava vakafukurwa vakabatwa vesa. Kunzi vanhu vakanga vabva vazhinji vacho vanga vari maCIO. Vamwe vacho vanga vari mayouth ezano ekungonzi endai munodzongonyedza chete. Kuti mukaenda muri 2-3 mukazviti CCC vanhu vachadivhaidhana votadza kuziva candidate yavo mavhotsi owandira kwedu. Ivo kana vane 1,500 votes imimba hamuchavhoterwa ne 3,000. Mune 4 candidates dimburirana 3,000 automatically uyo anowina. Ndozvavakaita kugoromonzi pakapinda vana tambo lenyuka paya kuti panze kuti vanhu vasiye Luke tambo lenyoka azvimirire. Vana Douglas Munzura vakanosainira imwe double candidate tikadyiwa neZANU. But utarise ukakaunda mafigures edu ekuMDC Alliance ipapo, we had I think twice number yemunhu weZANU, but takadyiwa vanhu vakadimburirana mavotes vachitadza kusiya Luke tambo lenyoka kuti apinde muparliament. Ukaenda kuMash East kwaine rimwe ronzi Mishek Manyere. Pandambonzwa sene mekuti Manyere ndabva ndafunga bhururu wangu Saddam. Kukariba kwayo nemembavha, iyi mbavha Andrew Mutsawo. Bvunzai vanhu vekukariba, hapana asikazive mbavha. Ndakatoshamisika pandakaona Andrew Mutsawo achinzi ari kustenda triple C double candidate kukariba. Ndakati chabvondoka kukariba. Vanhu vekukariba vaitoiziva, imbavha indozikanwa mukariba. Well known mbavha mukariba. Hatiti mbavha hadzimire as macandidates, but manje hamuna zvamunowana kana mukaita MP munonyepa. Saka the reason why High Court unoza High Court justice pakaitwa ma-appeals ekuti vanhu havabviswa, these appeals were dismissed. Hapana appeal yakambowinwa netriple C kuHigh Court because majaji ekuHigh Court acho ma-youth militias, ma-ZANU-PF officials, ZANU-PF youth masquerading as judges. Andimona. So who were? Because these people, obvious, vaitengwe vane vanhu vaivasainira. Triple C yakanga ine ma-specimens of signatures. ZANU-PF was furnished with these specimens of authorized signatures who were going to sign for the candidates who were on the party list. They had the party list, they had the signatures. Kuziva kuti uyu munhu akasaina apa pinzai candidate. So the issue of signatures now, ladies and gentlemen, ndakati next time kana tane a vibrant movement inenge ichida kupinda ma-elections vachitaura nyaya dzema-signatures aya varume. Ndakambofunga kuti majaji aya ari wrong. Pandakazoona judgment yacho, pane imwe judgment yandakaverenga. Jaji ye akapoinda zvinhu zvandakanzwa. Zvinhu zvisina kuonekwa nana Tavani Mupofu. Zvisina kuonekwa. Ndakashamisika kuti ukaenda ku Triple C, Vice President aiveko Tendai Biti is a constitutional lawyer. Welshman 𝐃𝐤𝐬 ari Vice President is a constitutional lawyer. I understand with my core is a lawyer foot. President Vedu was a lawyer, is a lawyer. Judge pakapitwa handed down. I condemned it. But pandakazoiverenga, boss inini ndoverenga ma-judgments aya. As a forensic scientist, ndine pandinenge ndichida kuonawo kuti apa zvakafamba sei. Ndichishandisawo knowledge yangu kuti is this judgment sound? Although all the judgments handed down were bogus, I'm going to state how bogus the judgments were. And first of all, I looked at the issue of signatures. And the issue of signatures, to be honest with you, kana mujifila kuti this signature is fraudulent or is fake signature. A judge cannot say this signature is fake. A nomination court cannot say this signature is fake. They can't do that. I want you to know it today. Although takachema, but you cannot approach the High Court and say this signature is fake. Ndopanopinda my experts to verify that this signature is fake. Expert kana yakupa evidence in court will go and lay it bare to the judge why the signature is fake. What features does a forensic expert look at when examining my fraudulent signatures? Because kune vamwe vanhu vanogona kuisa signature iri fake. Ukaitarisa bare eyes, it will appear to be genuine. So it was not enough for us to go before a court of law and say to a judge that that signature is fake. You need to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the signature is fake. And that issue of signatures can only be verified with an expert. A good example, a handwriting expert, a forensic scientist who specializes in handwritings and these fraudulent signatures. Now, who's a good example? Mukaenda ku German after Second World War. Vanhu vagara pane mumwe munhu wokuGerman akaclaima kuti akanhonga diary raHitler. Ndoda kuti mubate kutaura kwangu. Takutaura forensic science. Mufesi akaclaima kuti akanhonga diary raHitler. My signatures are even more, if you look at the diary, they were genuine signatures. They looked genuine. Kuita my signature Hitler chaiwo. My stories are inyorwa imomo, they appeared genuine. Nyaya dzaitwa dzaHitler chaizo. But to be honest with you, the diary was a faked diary. Saka rakaenda kuma forensic scientists. Kunoongororwa nema forensic scientists. And those handwriting experts, they concluded that the signatures were fake. Pane pamwe paakapotsa Hitler paaisaina. Hitler takarwa signature yake pane kamwe kekuti anga asingakasiye ikako. Kanga kasipo pama all signatures aive muchidiary imomo. Then vakanotora ink yakanyora diary iroro. Vakaikombeya neink dzemakore iwayo. Vakaona kuti ink iyi is a recent, ine ma-editions are recent. Saka toda kuti vanhu muzive kubva nhasi kuti if you have got two blue ballpoint pens, the ink irimo imomo is not the same ink. Ink kana ichigadzirwa ine ma-additives ainoita. You know, in a color inoiswa imomo kana iri blue. Ine anonzi mabinders anoiswa imomo yokuti inamire papepa. Ndosaka uchiona uchiti ukatora imwe ballpoint ukanyora nayo papepa ukadai neruoko inodzimika. Dzimwe hadzidzimike because dzine ma-additives adzinadzo. So each company inogadzira ballpoint ine ma-different additives ayo. Ukaona ballpoint yekuBic neballpoint yekuEverSharp dzese dzichinyora zveblue dzakatosiyana ma-additives. Imwe inonyora zviri dark blue because of some additives. Imwe inonyora zviri light blue because of some additives. Saka ink yediary iyoyo yakaendeswa for forensic analysis. Ndobva vanoona kuti ma-additives arimo, they are recent additives. They were not the additives aivepo nguva yaHitler. And ndopa vakazobata kuti this diary is fake. Zvakafanana nemasignatures ari kunzi mafake mukoti. Dai pakaitwa ink analysis, maigona kuona kuti there are two different ink, but zvinzi madocuments akasainwa same day. Because kana achisainwa same day, anosainwa nesame ink ka. You can tell the ink yakasaina apa yakagadzirwa ne-this company. Iye iri papa yakagadzirwa ne-that company. There are two different inks. So ukaenda before a judge, uchitaura kuti ndiri forensic scientist. Ndakaongorora ink idzi dzakasaina document iri nedzakasaina document iri. There are two different inks. That means they came from two different ballpoint pens. Ndikaongorora signature iyi neiyi. Iyi signature yakasiyana neiyi pekuti nepekuti neiyi pekuti nepekuti. So these two signatures, did not emerge from the same person. This is what was needed. Pavakaenda ku court. Kunoti paingoda kuya a forensic scientist and expert in handwriting to come and verify kuti this is a forged document and this is an original document. Bosi kana tsamba idzaibva printing machine imwe chete, quality of the paper must have been the same. Saka ukatarisa quality yepaper racho futi yagona kukuudza kuti quality yepaper iri yakabva musame office imomo here. Is it the same paper? Kana riri different paper? Iro dzakaprintwa one day tsamba mapepa yakazosiyana sei. Kuti unenge une 100 mapepa same quality, une one paper of different quality. Saka you query. And this is what the court wanted to prove. This paper, this document is forged because of the pen is different, the signatures are different, the quality of paper is different. So these three facts were enough kuti kana judge njango akatengwa aitokuudza kuti ano this is a fake document, zvatopera zvavharana, because hapana paiwana mapepa kana anga asina kusainirwa kwakaprintwa mapepa tsamba idzi, hakuna kwaizowana same paper riri kuofisi yekuko, zvaitosiyana. Saka ndopamuri kuona advocate Tawanda Kanengoni aita argue kupakesi yembavha iyaya kuti prior to the election, another point yandasina consider kuti vakomana vedavo pavakaendesa masignatories avo nema-candidates avo, they should have put a specimen of the logo that they were going to use. That specimen of the logo must have been the same pamapapers ema-candidates avo ese. Kana mumwe akuya neri photocopied, ndopanenge pakuzobvunzwa kuti why are you bringing a photocopy, not the original? That could have raised my eyebrows as well. So whose duty was it to provide that? Rakanga rava basa rani rekuprovide evidence idzodzo. Ranga rava basa rani rekumeka sure kuti masignatories aenda, part logo yaenda, and paper repart logo iro richashandiswa nemunhu wese. Inini chandakaona chaifanirwa kuita paipaya, vaifanirwa kuti tsamba yese inoenda uku inenge ine logo iri imprint mupaper. Kana iri signature yachamisa kana chiri chi, I think zvaifanirwa kuve zviri imprinted mupaper. Maifanira kuisa zvakafanana nemacertificates atinawo kuuniversity, kuti kana uchienda nemacertificates atinawo uchitsvaga basa nawo vanototarisa masecurity features of the paper, kuti kana tsamba yakabva paTeesside University ine masecurity features akadai. We should have put security features on our papers. Security feature isingawanikwe kune another part. Zviri sei mukuli, how are you? So this is what we should have done. That should have prevented us receiving these bogus electoral judgments. This is why Makaona last time Dakati, I think this time I need to bulldoze myself into the executive of this party, the new party that is coming. I must be there. Ndofana kupinda mparty nini. And it's called a watermark. Yeah. A security feature, a watermark imprinted in the paper. Vaifana kutsvaga a unique watermark for every letter inoenda ku nomination court. Kuti iwe ukazoya nechipepa chisina that watermark ichocho, vanotanga kubvunza kuti kweiwewe yako haina watermark. Muchitanga kuongorora kuti aiwa this is a forged document. Muita ma-security investigations enyu. Popina isusu ma-forensic scientists tokuongorora toona kuti zveshuwa this is forged. Toenda kukoti, tonyora statement, toenda kukoti. Wosvika kukoti wotaura kukoti kuti this is a forged document, chakata hachipo, chakata hachipo, chakata hachipo. Zvatopera, you guide the magistrate, you guide the magistrate. Andiri muri kuona. Saka dai takaita izvozvo pamwe tisina kuwana these bogus electoral judgments. Because High Court judges involved, they allowed those bogus candidates to participate in an election because there was a loophole in our application. There was a loophole in our challenges. This Justice Mafusire Joseph Mafusire struck the matter from the agent role, saying the opposition party, it lacks locus stand. Next time, people, they need to consult. Tobatsirana kuti ayo, kana pakadai wona izvakati nezvakati. On another issue, Justice Neville Wamambo dismissed our appeal or our application and say the paper had nothing suspicious. Urgona, Sambayai, Yatutara Nezhai, could I find no prove before a judge, could this is a faked letter? For it not engage a forensic scientist, Vagaongorora, Vagaona ma features and a siripopa paper. Signature in a paper, Sagasiana pakat, Saga, this is a forged signature. But by mere telling the judge to look at the signatures, ne bare eyes. Azubudi. Unoziatu kutsikirira, muna akanyora panonyora talents wanda. Ne panonyora shepherd Judah. Pakatosiana. Kutsikirira kwatoto etako kutsikirira kwegwe. History ya security feature. Yekuti kana ndichitoongorora ndozvanotanga kutarisa kuti munhu akanyora apa. Did he put much pressure on this paper? Kana usira wamwe watsekana pressure anongotsvedzesa bhilo. Izvozvo it's enough evidence to that no zvakatosiyana munhu akanyora apa is different from this person. Watopedza. Ndosaka kuona Justice Fieldamaro Muzofa struck our matter from Agent Rose saying the opposition party lacks locus stand. Panyaya imbava yokaribaya. So two judges. Vakati we lack our opposition party lacks locus stand, and the other judge just dismissed our case with apana chiri suspicious. Because with the bare eyes, a judge cannot tell that this is a faked document. But there must be features which can be expressed, which can be made bare by an expert. Munagatrena to identify what is this fake or is this genuine. And more. So, kutadza kwedu kuunganidza zvakadaro kwakazoita kuti tipuwe these bogus judgments which eventually affected our standing kusvika nhasi ndozvikutinetsa. So CCC had filed objections about these double candidates in June 2023. They received no response from ZANU-PF. They complained in ZANU-PF. Kuti ZANU-PF takakupai ma nominations, ma names edu, tikakupai ma signatories edu, but ZANU-PF did not respond. And it was wrong for us as well to expect ZANU-PF to each other this is a fake. But I kind of court we should have proved it and send it to ZANU-PF, no judgment, should be same double candidates. So our electoral appeal to the Electoral Court, it was under EC 3 of 2023 against the decision of the nomination court to accept the nomination forms of fraudulent double candidates whose forms carried forged signatures. The application was good, but we lacked expertise to go and point at why we claim that those signatures were fake. It was not up to the judges to go and say, yes, they are fake. No. It was supposed to be the forensic expert who will go before the court and explain features which differentiate both signatures to say this is a genuine signature because of this. This is not a genuine signature because of that. So after that, we filed criminal complaints against all the fraudulent candidates. These charges were filed under RRB number 5585161 ZANU-PF copy. So I blame the ZANU-PF as well. That after receiving this complaint, ZANU-PF must have investigated. Kana vachi-investigate vanawo forensic scientists or handwriting experts who should have just assisted. Signature inombonetsa kuona kuti fake here. Munoshandisa high resolution kana kuti telescope chaiyo. Momaunda ngikunyenya moisa signature yacho, moisa imwe signature apa. Mogara forensic scientists makatarisa signatures. Painotangira, painoperera, uchifamba nayo, painotangira, painopera. Muchitarisa features kuti feature iyi iripo here. Anokona so munhu apa akakona here. Anofamba so. Mukombea ese signatures acho ese. Muchinyora your findings and present them to court. Very simple. Very, very simple. Saka muri kuona zvese izvozvo bogus judgments which were handed down, which eventually affected our standing as a part. And they were aided by Mnangagwa's in separation of powers. Really say, Holy, how are you? Because Mnangagwa lead the executive. Judiciary is led by Malawa. Legislature is made by Mdenda. Idi Mnangagwa appoints the judiciary. He appoints the head of judiciary. And he is the one who also appoints or staff the courts, the judges, one appoint Mnangagwa. So there is no separation of duties. But once Mnangagwa either appoint a judiciary head, anonzi Malawa uya, obviously my judges are just uyaba, anengato ZANU kana wakaenda through yaonda selection process yavo. Malawa go choose on wake ZANU and staff all the courts with the sympathizers of ZANU-PF. So I am saying the judges that are already in the courts, High Court, Supreme Court, whatever, whatever court you can name in Zimbabwe, these are sympathizers of ZANU-PF. These are political activists of ZANU-PF. Obvious, what they need is just a reward from Mnangagwa. So whatever judgments they hand down, they are judgments that favor ZANU-PF and Mnangagwa. If his judgment to date, they show the judiciary does not consider itself bound to the constitutional ideal. Our judiciary, the constitutional ideal is independence. So all the judgments that have been handed down up to date, they are not independent. They are bound to protect Mnangagwa and ED. Mnangagwa, if you look at what he tried to do last 2023 election, general election, Mnangagwa did not want to stand 2023 against Nelson Chamisa. He didn't want that. That general elections, he wanted to stand it against Monzora or someone else, because he knows Chamisa would defeat him again as he did in 2018. So judges, this is why you see judges, they removed Chamisa from being MDC leader, despite the part holding its congress in Iguero, and that was nullified. Congress Nana Bidu that was elected vice president in that Congress. And it was nullified by the courts. No one can nullify that. But when it was nullified, he never even challenged it as a constitutional lawyer to try to go to court as vice president of MDC Alliance to try and challenge that in court. Judge you nullified this. This constitution says that. That constitution says that. He never did the same. Today, he's singing that I am the elected vice president at the Congress in Gweru, which was disbanded by the Supreme Court. So the judges in Zimbabwe, as I say, are political activists. And they wanted to ensure that Chamisa won't stand for 2023 presidential elections. This is why they wrestled the MDC and gave it to Monzora to control it. After that, do you know what happened? After that, Mnangagwa had to bribe the judges. All judges, they received an extra gratia payment from Emerson Mnangagwa. They received US dollar 400,000, which were not part of their conditions of service. So he was like buying judgment. Dzavo kuti aiwa avachandipa judgment dzandofarira inini saMnangagwa. Unonzwa umwe munhu achiblame out, hey, why did Chamisa leave control of CCC or being leader, or why did Chamisa resign from being leader of the CCC? Under such circumstances that I've presented today, honestly, do you think even if you take Hitler, the opposition leader, kana kunotora ani kana kunotora momutanu imbogwe kwa America, what do you call this one, Donald Trump, go take him with the opposition in Zimbabwe. Under these conditions, Trump will never materialize. He will never move an inch. And you hear people blame Chamisa under these conditions to say, why did you leave being MDC, being CCC the leader? MDC, it was snatched from him. He did not run away from it. CCC has been snatched from him. He did not run away from it. Sakavarakashi, amanozori Chamisa akatiza, vanozviwana kupa. Under those bogus judgments that have allowed a dictator to thrive. This include, tikada kutarisa, kuti dictator has thrived. A lot of opposition people, they are living CCC. My bogus judgments acho include ukatarisa yaMakamu versus ZANU-PF. Makamu approached ZANU-PF. He just wanted a voters' roll. Because according to Electoral Act Chapter 2, subsection 13 Electoral Act, it makes it clear, ladies and gentlemen, that any Zimbabwean is entitled to a copy of voters' roll. Makamu went to the election without a voters' roll. CCC went to the election without a voters' roll. No candidate was given a copy of the voters' roll. And the judge ruled in favor of ZANU-PF against the electoral chapter, against the Electoral Act. And ZANU-PF won that challenge. This was a bogus judgment handed down by someone pocketing $400,000 US in his pocket, a house and a car. Monzora approached the same court against ZANU-PF. He was talking about the elimination exercise, that it was unlawful. All the opposition in the country agreed, yes, it was unlawful. But surprisingly, a bogus judgment was handed down. Courts dismissed that application. But they did not say the elimination was unlawful. Courts did not say that. Read the bogus judgment. You'll be shocked what the judges wanted to say. And they ruled in favor of ZANU-PF. Tikatasa mangwana akachallenge kuti Kasupwera afanirwe kutomboita candidate. A citizen of Zimbabwe was barred from contesting. And the bogus judgment was handed down in support of Mangwana's application, and Kasupwera was barred from contesting. Chamisa resign. You are an opposition leader in this type of a situation where an opposition will never win a case in court. Tikaenda ishema double candidates anachitaura iyai. Tikaenda ishema rallies, about 150 rallies za Nelson Chamisa were barred by the police. Tikaenda ishe yevanhu vachinyimwa bhero. Good example ndi Job Scala wamakuona izvinezvi kuti pamwe dzabuda dza frustrated. He was denied bail by the courts, not by Chamisa. Chamisa had no influence whatsoever in granting Job a bail. This captured because they refused job bail for 2 years. There was also Chaser, who was arrested and denied bail. So you cannot expect an opposition leader to thrive under such conditions. And any opposition party or a triple C party in our country, it will never expect any impartial judgment headed down in Zimbabwe, or an impartial hearing to be held down in Zimbabwe under judges who have got 400,000 bribe in their pockets. So you can see that the control of other pillars of state, have given us a dictator. Mnangagwa becomes a dictator. Why? How? What is a dictator? That's the question that rings in people's mind. Because dictator tukureve. Because ukangona munyika, when there is no turnover in power of the executive, then it's a dictatorship. Ukaita nyika zisina dictatorship, unotoziva kwaya uya ku-UK, unotoziva kuti after 5 years tochinja government. And munomu, you rarely find a prime minister completing a term munomu. Because the Varungu, they try to do away with the dictatorship. Go to America. 1-2 terms arowa pasi. Donald Trump akaita 1 term chete arowa pasi. Go to Zimbabwe. Mugabe had 39 years in power. Now Mnangagwa is aiming for another 30 years in power. So when you see, in 44 years, Zimbabwe was ruled by only 2 people. Only 2 people. Then what was good? That is dictatorship. That's the definition of dictatorship. Ukadauta sa dictatorship, you just look at the turnover in power of the executive in a country. Conclusion, all right. That's what we call dictatorship. Because in that dictatorship, leader nenga aripo possess absolute power. If you look at what is happening in Zimbabwe now, Mnangagwa has absolute power. Kana uchiramba tarisa zviri kuitika nhasi. Ano hire and fire at will. He chooses who to contest with. Urona my-elections apa by-elections ari kuitwa. Mnangagwa ari kuchoose kuti anoda kupinda muele by-election nani. Kwete kuti arida kupinda nezvido zvevanhu. I just saw that they're now trying to change the constitution. Obvious, they have got 2/3 majority now, and they are going to change the constitution. Mnangagwa will rule Zimbabwe for the next 30 years if we don't be very careful. Zimbabwe is a country ruled by a small clique of people. And kusvika that clique vachinjana vaneta. If we don't act, then we are in for a high jump. If you go to Zimbabwe today, we are witnessing repression. We are witnessing human rights abuses at a larger scale. We have got the highest rate of poverty in our country. There is turmoil. Unaona, wakambona nyika, yekuti inyika yekupi, zvikaitwa munomu mu-UK, minister anoenda kujeri. Kuti unotora letterhead ye-ministry, kuti minister, wonyorera kambani kuti tiri kusekonda employer iningi, nokuti ane degree rezvakati. If you do it in this country, you go to prison. That's corruption. You go straight to prison. I'm shocked kuti kuna vanhu veZANU-PF vakaenda kuchikoro vari muno mu-UK. Vari kuti there is nothing wrong about that. I am really shocked. Ndopaunozoona kuti vanhu vatonyorera ma-assignments vaya havazorizini. Toti takagara panapa munhu oti shepadwe ndaomerwa na-assignment ndinyorerewo. Togara pano tokubhalira assignment, toverenga isusu toita reference, topedza tongokupa document rakadaro. Zvauraya education, zvauraya vanhu vanorizina. Because kana uchingonyorerwa, you don't reason. and you don't say what is happening in Zimbabwe, could zviri normal. Could the minister translated the government on your company with the employer in sana bozona isus. And I've sent you their changes. So unfortunately, phone yacho imwe yacho yatorwa nemuzukuru wenyu. Imwe yacho ndo iripa regaitone kuti ndikaenda pa computer. Can I get the changes that they want to make? And they are going to make those changes if we don't be very careful. If we don't be very careful, those changes are going to be made. Let me see what comes on my computer. Onaramba uchinyemwerera kwa mutoko ngoma inorira. Let me see what changes are coming here. What it? I think I have to see them later. I can't see them popping up on my computer because my computer is logged on a WhatsApp, but I can't see them popping up now. So Mnangagwa's dictatorial tendencies from the day he took over power from Robert Mugabe, we have seen it has caused Zimbabwe untold suffering. We have lost lives, including those he killed before he became president in Matebeleland. 20 to 30,000 Develes murdered. That was a warning that I'm coming by Mnangagwa. So it is not going to be easy for you and me to end this dictatorship, but we need to try and fight it once and for all. And it's a worthwhile thing to try. It's a worthwhile goal to achieve. I am telling you, ending dictatorship once and for all seems a worthwhile goal that you must say, I need to. That I must say, I need to. If you look at Zimbabwe today, Mnangagwa has built a personal cult and a military-run or a military-run oligarch. Ukada kutarisa, what he says today is above law, all laws. This is why he's saying he's going to change the constitution. Unfortunately, I can't read the changes that they want to make, but I've seen some circulating. I could have just put them down so that I won't be able to scroll down whilst I'm making a presentation. We are witnessing appropriation of state funds to a select clique of cronies. Ukaenda ku Zimbabwe, takaona kuchinzi kune iri kugadzirwa iya inonzi exchange watu vachakabhenda bhenda ukazvitarisa mari yachanzi yakapera changoita store hapisati chapera kuvakwa. Ukatarisa Chivhayo, Wikneyo Chivhayo, ndakabvunza nezuro ndikati Tsotsiri akagara paChikuru maximum prison 2005 ndichibva kwaMutareni ndichibva kuChipinge. Wikneyo Chivhayo anga ari kuprison 2005 paChikuru maximum. Handichazivi kuti yanga iri nyaya yei, but ndiri kutaura ndichiti look at how he's squandering mari. Ukaverenga motikari 3 dzaapa Sandra Ndebele, Sulu Chimbetu na Fantan, 3 dzinowedza 500,000 pounds, 500,000 US dollars, dziri 3. Pau 3 wadzo 500,000, ukabvunza kuti mari yacho ari kuiwana kupi? Akapuwa 580 million project yeZesa yekugwanda, akasuwa Zesa akapuwa 22 million. So all in all he had about 600 million, which is over half a billion. Million chaicha anogona kuidya upenyu hwake. Imbonzwa aida kutaurira how this man worth. Mupurisa wekuZimbabwe akapinda basa. Ngataura nechokwadi. unosaina 20 years contract. Let's hope kuti uri kupuwa iwewe $500 pamwedzi. $500 pamwedzi uri mupurisa. For 20 years. For 12 months. Unowana mari pagore for 12 months. Unowana 0.050010. Kana pagore unongo uchiwana 6,000. Kana uri mupurisa kuZimbabwe uchiora $500 pamwedzi. The whole year you earn 6,000. Per 20 years you earn 120,000. Mupurisa ari kushanda 20 years pachipurisa muZimbabwe. For 20 years dzawasaina contract yako, you are going to earn $120,000. Ausviki mari yakatengerwa Sandra Ndebele motikari $155,000. Upenyu hwako hwese mupurisa haukwanisi kutenga, you can't afford to buy a Benz. Those same salary kuhorwa nemusoja. Musoja cannot afford to buy a Benz. Salary yake ye 20 years ari musoja. Haakwanisi kutenga imba. Pa 20 years uchada kudzisa vana kuenda kuchikoro. Uchada iwewe kudya nekupfeka nekuterera pekugara. Ukada kuti uvake imba 120,000 iyi yauchashandira yauchahora in 20 years haina chainokukwanira kana uri musoja. Saka tiri kutaura mumwe munhu ane 600 million yaapuwa kubva pamari yaunotorerwa iwewe. Haambofa akashanda upenyu hwake. Dai kunzi mupurisa mugajere wese musoja anopuwa 1 million pa 20 years. Unenge une life iri straight. Haufa wakatambura basa, haufa wakatambura kushanda. Imba unenge uchigara yaunoda. Ndikapa mupurisa nhasi, ndikapa munhu anoda kupinda basa 20 years 1 million. Ndomudza kuti chiita zvauri kuda zvacho kusvika wafa haipedze kuidya. Saka uyo ane 600 million yekuzesa. He can buy as many cars as he wants and donate as much as he can. Ndosaka achitoganza kuti I can change your life. He can, yes, because he has 600 million. Yaakapuwa nezesa. Magetsi ari kuenda. Gwanda solar project yacho hakuna chairi kuita. Ari kuudza kuti ndikakunzwa uchitaura kuti yakadya mari yemagetsi ndokurwa 𝐃𝐤𝐜𝐿. So it's not him. Kana ukada kuvhura ziso nzeve kunzwa. Ndakabvunza kuti motikari dzemaBenz ari kutengwa ku1 company. Ikambani yaani irikutengesa maBenz iwayo? Ndakabvunza that question and nobody answered me. So Zimbabwe, unonyatsoona kuti Zimbabwe iri under the leadership of a psychopathic leader. Zimbabwe has a psychopathic leader. Zvakadaro zvezvo hazvifaniri kuitika munyika. Idi Mnangagwa is disastrously wants to remain at the top of the heap of this heap of rubbish. My war veterans, my number of vow, my soldier tusina basa, to chi. He has shown unfortunate personality traits that if you look at Mnangagwa today, you can tell that he is bent to blame other people for his failure. He plays the victim. He spread negativity. That is not the type of leader Zimbabwe wants. He is a very irresponsible leader with money. Because he's the custodian of our taxes, the monies that we pay to the government. If someone is looting, then do you see call president? We can say he's irresponsible. Mari yacho yolutwa yakutenga motikari kukamba kumakasels emwana wake. Mari yacho yakupinda kufamily kwake. 3 motikari $455,000 yatopinda. Fantan chakuto driver Benz. Iri kubva kumari yezesa. Sulu arifamba neBenz iri kubva kumari yezesa. Sandra Ndebele yakutofamba neBenz iri kubva kumari yezesa. Yangodoneterwa yangopiwa. Ndakati dai ida kudoneta anoziva nekudonetera. Tireka musikana kekuimba kutanzia teri I'm sorry. Akana maoko. Ndo vanonda support. Vana jichi chimpano ayo ndo vanoda support. Tine zvirema zvakawanda. Tena mpano vana munoda wafa vasingaonewe. Ndo vari kuda support yacho. But hanzi nemwe munhu ari kuimprove the community. And how can you improve the community? Uchitora uchinounganidza pane vanazvo. Uchisiya vasina. Dai akatenga ambulance 1 kana 2. Akati parirenyatwa ambulance. Gomo ambulance ne 455 million. Iri fully equipped. The community was gonna benefit. Tataura kudaro handi mazanu. Iwe uchitengawo maambulance. Tichitaura kuti inini handidi. Handina 600 million irubva kuzesa. Imari irufana kuveka topedza gwanda solar project kwatove nemagetsi. Hakuna chiriko. Saka urikuona kuti we've got an irresponsible president with money. One who cannot admit to his mistakes and blame others for his failures. A president who lacks sympathy for his country. A president, to himself, to him, it is perfectly fine to criticize other people. But he goes on insulting others. He accuses his victims. When Job Scala said, Urimpurwa, he spent 2 years in prison. So you will find that since the British colonialists left Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe's most brutal tyrants have emerged in the form of Robert Mugabe and Idi Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa being the worst leader of our generations. And on. Dosaka mwana ndatanga panatanga presentation nisanda peds. Kundati Idi Mnangagwa's numbers, days are numbered. Ukaona the way yanda presenter with the operating with the way he's operating his economy, he has pulled himself down. Even when one supporter, they are now nervous. Vanamchanga vari kubvunza kuti komari vaneiona. Iye Mnangagwa kakatombobvunza kuti komari vafana vaneiona kupi. Ndakambomuzwa achibvunza kudaro. Munhu anobva amboshanda asi ane mari inotyisa. Hanzi ukaenda kubhengi kwake kuna mari. Saka this situation yamuri kuona ndo situation yakaita result in military coups. Kuti vanga vakuti Mugabe akusa vazukuru vake mugovernment. Mugabe ari vana vake vakuita zvavanda vageza. Mwana wa Mugabe aivhura champagne bottle rechampagne re5,000 iye achidira watch ye12,000. Aita hamuna zvamunondiita. Zvakarwadza war veterans. Ukaenda unoona war veterans havana chavanacho. The actual people who participated in the war, who fought with Ian Smith, they've got nothing to eat, nowhere to live. Vari kurima purazi nebadza, havana kana tractor. Andriko. Ndo zvakakonzera military coup izvozvo. Zvakapa kuti vana Mutsvangwa vaitwe fired naMugabe vabvunza. And Mutsvangwa has been fired again after asking Mnangagwa. Chiwenga abva atotiza hanzi ndarwara, abva atoenda kupi. Abva atokwira ndege kuenda kuChina. Zvakaita achidzoka Mugabe achibviswa. Because the situation yamuri kuona iruta Mnangagwa, this same situation that had led to greater instability and suffering in our country. Waona kuti vanhu vanga vakungofa ngenhunzi. MuZimbabwe during Mugabe, people were dying in masses. Thousands and thousands of people were dying. Whereas in Mnangagwa's government, thousands of Zimbabweans are dying on daily basis. Vanhu vakufane cholera, vanhu varufane chi. Siti kanse uta haisi kutakura marara. Vanhu varufane cholera. Vanhu vanotengerwa mabenzi dedi. Nemari iri contributwa nevanhu. Mari yezesa imari inobva kuma taxpayers. Ndosaka kuona nyika is suffering from massive migration, widespread violence, yanyanya, and vanhu vaakutiza nyika. Ndopananga achitaura kuti now we need a way forward. Some people, they were asking, when I started this presentation, I started with a way forward. What the Zimbabweans must do. Zvese zviri kuitika, we must expose our horror to, or our situation in Zimbabwe to the international community. This abject failure of ZANU-PF, It must be exposed. People are crying. They thought SADC would act, but SADC has taken time, and SADC has always failed to deal with our situation in Zimbabwe. The international community now is busy, is ignoring our situation. They are busy concentrating on Russia. SADC weyataitemba yakungofocus chete on DRC, yakaunganidza masoja azara Congo. They are fighting there. Andiona. Apawo patara kufunga ndikutaura President Chamisa chaivo vakatonyorera SADC ina kuacta. Because vaivatarisira kuti regional board ichauya nema-regional solutions to try and see if Zimbabwe can have fresh free pools to elect a president. But up to now, Trukona have security. And when Mnangagwa, they are fully aware that that's what Chamisa did. This is why they are fighting to wrestle Triple C from Chamisa. Our solution, ladies and gentlemen, lies on us taking up arms against the ZANU-PF government. Lies on us receiving military training. Because as Zimbabwe opposition, our country, military is now a ZANU-PF wing. Our courts are a ZANU-PF wing. So what do we need under such type situation? We need to stand firm. If it means taking up arms of war and fight dictatorship, let's do that. But what I've stated before is before we embark on such a route, let's consider other countries that took that route. Countries like Libya, countries like Iraq, countries like Tunisia, Sudan, Niger, Egypt. They took the same route. They fought dictators. And it all started in Tunisia, where they overthrew a dictator all by themselves. They never looked for assistance from anywhere. If you ask no, we need international intervention. What we don't need international intervention. We need approval. Because if we don't get approval, we'll be labeled terrorists. That is not a tag to carry, a nice tag to carry. We must engage the international community so that we get recognition. Once we get recognition as freedom fighters, we can enter Zimbabwe and liberate ourselves from this dictatorship. Because we can provide freedom from this tyrant. That is only if we need to be involved personally and fight to gain political control, to remove the institutions of oppression in our country. Saga, what do we need is external recognition. Once you get external recognition, it will be very easy for you to get arms of war, to get cash to go and fight. Chete. Because even our military, the true soldiers remaining in our Zimbabwe, we've got few soldiers remaining as professional soldiers. Once Chimoto chikatanga Zimbabwe, those guys can decisively turn the tables against ZANU-PF and Mnangagwa. Believe me, they are ready for that. But once we fail to do that, we've got a long way, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a long way to topple that ZANU-PF government. Now they want to make sure that they change the constitution of a country to suit whatever they want. If they want a third term for Emmerson Mnangagwa, then they give him a third term. There is nowhere you guys are going to say, no, azite, chafati chema. Because the state organs and institutions, they must not belong to a political party. Should be impartial in the discharge of their duties. Our army should be impartial. Our judges should be impartial. But that is not the situation in our country. We are in a precarious situation that needs Zimbabweans to act. To act. If we don't act, we will perish. Ndikutokutaurirai hama dzangu. Hanzi heti inonyimisa idoro iyi. Dhirihora iro. Vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje. Gara mudhiriwo, dhirihora vakomana. Dhirihora rembanje, vanogara mudhiriwo, vakomana. Vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje. Nogara mudhiriwo, musatambe navo. Vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje. Vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora vakomana. Dhirihora rembanje, vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora iro. Vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje. Nogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora iro. Nogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje. Nogara mudhiriwo, vakomana. Vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje. Nogara mudhiriwo, musatambe navo. Vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje. Vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora vakomana. Musara zvakanaka. Tererai zvanachitaura panapa zviri very important. Unozonzwa mumwe munhu akuti kochamisa hese akazotiza kutripusi. Haana kutiza kutripusi. It was snatched from him. The good part, chavamwe hana candidate yawina. Triple C has been snatched from him. MDC Alliance has been snatched from him. Not because arikutorerwa, because ari weak. Arikutorerwa because Mnangagwa hadi munanomunjika. And Mnangagwa has suffered twice, 2 defeats. 2018 and 2023. Ndapedza tozotaura mangwana kana ndiri mupenyu. Good night.